Welcome, everyone. This is MC Starman, Martin Comtois. We're trying something new. We're doing some cross-pollination with my friend Tamara Segal from Hawthorne Herbal in Prince Edward Island. What is the place you live in?
Prince Edward County, Ontario.
I get confused with Prince Edward Island. Prince Edward
Right.
County. I visited your beautiful farm there, and we've been connecting for a long time. It's so nice for you to join me today.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're doing this. It was a cool idea we had. So let's go cross-pollination.
Cool. Just to introduce Tamara a little bit, actually, I'm going to let her introduce herself because she knows a lot more about what she does. So maybe you can tell everyone how your practice is going and what do you do?
Right. Yeah. So I am a herbalist. So Hawthorne Herbals is the name of the little business that I have, and I work with plants as medicine. That's what us herbalists do. So I live at this farm where I grow and wild harvest a lot of the herbs that I work with in my practice, and people come to see me for health support, holistic health support, and I'm working with the medicines that I make to support them for all kinds of different health issues, either alongside their medical doctor or just completely independent of medical system as they wish. And as part of that, we go through a whole long holistic kind of consult, the way that that holistic practitioners do, where I want to get all the information that I can about the person that's coming to see me, so that I can get a sense as to what's going on with them health-wise, physically, mentally, emotionally, their history, all of these things. And as part of that practice, I work with medical astrology. And so I'm looking at their birth chart, their natal chart, and getting a sense of what's going on with them physically, mentally, and emotionally through that. So that's one of the tools that's helping to inform the way that I'm going to work in it. And it informs what's going on with them and how, what would be most effective in terms of herbs and nutrition, whatever else I might suggest, based on their planetary influences on their whole being. So this is where there's a connection, and I moved into working with medical astrology from starting with just a focus and an interest in astrology, from which I have learned a lot from you, and that was a big piece in getting me on this path. So I'm pretty excited to be here, sharing this little session together at this point because of that. And I'll just say also, in addition to the work that I do one-on-one with people, I also teach a lot. I teach a lot about herbal medicine, and I tie in the astrology aspects with that. So I do that both here at the farm in person, and also lots these days online, as we're all doing these days. So, but yeah, the times that you have visited here, you have brought so much to people in our community in terms of teaching astrology back when you were more kind of a traveling astrologer going across the country and giving workshops on the times and the upcoming times. And there were a lot of really important predictions in there, I would say, and helpful preparation for the times that we're in now. And as part of that, we were able to really make some good connections with each other that I think really fed what both of us are doing in the world and on our personal journeys. And so, so I will say, I know I have some people that might be tuning in here who are sort of from my circles, from my community. And I wanted to introduce you to Martin Comtois, my friend who does a lot of these sessions online with his beautiful astrology wheel and crystal balls representing planets, which he can tell you about, as well as all the other stuff. So why don't you share with my crew who don't know about you, what you do, what your story is, basically.
Well, thank you, Tamara, for that. That's beautiful. How exciting it is to be cross-pollinating like that. And And thank you for introducing me to your group. I guess you don't do much, you do mostly classes online. You haven't done any kind of interview like that before, huh?
Generally not, other than occasionally someone has me like on their podcast or something, but it's sort of few and far between. And otherwise, I just make these videos of me and a plant, and I'm talking about the plant, but I don't have another human on there. So yeah.
I've been finding that cross-pollination really helps in getting your work out there. And I know that a lot of the people that follow me will be excited to follow you. So what is your name of your channel on YouTube?
Hawthorne Herbals. Yeah, so it's HAWTHORN, no E at the end. Hawthorne Herbals. That's my channel. Yeah, you can check it out. Little, like 15 minutes or less videos about plants, the wild plants mostly, and herbal medicine.
And you get to visit Tamara's beautiful farm. For those who are new to my work, the followers of your channel, well, I do the Healer and the Dreamer Astrology is my channel, and the Healer and the Dreamer Astrology is a alchemical Jungian perspective to astrology. So my work is steeped into the work of Carl Jung. I'm a big student of his work, and I'd become an astrologer first, and so in my astrology, I was finding real challenges in helping people overcome their psychological trauma, their psychological healing. And so I really needed to dive deeper into Carl Jung's work to understand how the psyche works. And so then I integrated dream analysis with my astrology. So for those of you who know about Carl Jung was a psychiatrist and psychologist who used the dream analysis as his main technique for healing the soul. Jung looked at psychology as the science of the soul, which is very different than how we look at it in our modern times. Jung is still fairly modern, one of the founders of modern psychology with Freud, but really removed from our times, and this kind of psychology as the science of the mind versus psychology as the science of the soul. So I found that his work was really helpful. So when I see a client, I have him, we do the chart analysis, but I have the client keep a dream journal leading to the reading. And then at the end of the reading, I do the dream analysis, and the dream analysis confirms the astrological reading in a way that is uncanny. That's the synchronicity is going on. That's pretty amazing, when the dream world knows to send a perfect message to confirm the reading and send you on your way of integrating dream work and astrology in your healing practice. And that's what we shared together, from the past as I was growing in my practice. And now it's becoming much, much more integrated in what I do. And then on my channel, you'll find both some Jungian work and some astrology work. And then I comment on the times. One of the great things about these times, and when I was visiting you, we talked about the upcoming crisis, so now we're in it. And so then what we're being asked now as astrologers is to, okay, the crisis happened, now what, And so I have a beautiful video and a video series that I'm doing called The Astrology of the Great Reset. And you can see one of the videos is 2022 Deuces Are Wild, which is a 2-hour breakdown of the astrology of our times. And as we go along, in our video series, we'll explore more of that. And then at the end of this video, we'll talk about more. So that's a basic understanding. In my teaching, my online classes are not as developed as you are. And that's what I'm seeking to kind of step into, is offer my work in classes that you can sign up for. Right now, I'm just building my channel and developing interest, and I'm up to about 350 now followers. And as I go along and grow my audience, then I'm going to start offering classes. I do most of my classes live in person, and I have quite a bit of material that has been developed, and I look forward to sharing that. So that's a basic introduction to my work.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot. And I my partner Chris and I we comment sometimes on your well, first of all, the foresight that you had, because it must have been what, like 2018 earliest, or latest, or 2017 or something like that, the last time that you came through here. It's been quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And you came through with this workshop that you were bringing in person, and it was called 2020 Visions. And it was such a great name. And Chris always comments on how you really have a way with the names. You come up with some really good catchy names for your themes. The 2022 Deuces Are Wild, he really likes that one too. And but also that, once the pandemic broke out and we realized, relatively soon after that, wow, like it seems like maybe things actually are never going to be the same again. So many things are changing from here, that you were tuned into that, even though it wasn't, oh, there's going to be a pandemic, like specifically that kind of thing, but that no, like there's going to be this energy shift that is going to be profound. It's going to mean like a complete transformation of our whole society. And there is this force that's rising through all of us, and we would have been feeling it collectively and individually back then. And the idea that it was really going to culminate at when Saturn and Pluto conjoined in the very beginning of 2020. And then, of course, it seems like the really next big major astrological event that followed that was Jupiter and Saturn conjoining in early Aquarius in
Right.
the end of 2020. So 2020 was like just kind of blanketed, bookended in these major transformational transits, the
Right.
echoes of which we're still feeling, and we were already feeling the lead up to it, before then.
Right. Well, and then now we're in the in the throngs of the Saturn Uranus square, and it was really interesting, because as an astrologer, we've been, personally, and I think a lot of astrologers have been talking about this, the spirit of our times, and I know that Jung in his work talks a lot about it as well, kind of to prepare us for what's going on. But as the Uranus Pluto square started growing, and I think that I think a lot of people, I think it's important to realize that this is just not a new crisis. We've been in this crisis for quite a while, and 2008 was when Pluto came into Capricorn, and we had this huge financial crisis. And then by 2010, 2011, 2012, we were talking about the 1% and how the 1% is controlling everything. And there was a growth, we were wearing anonymous masks, and
the Occupy movement was so big then. Yeah.
Exactly. And so then in the astrology of the time, we really saw the Uranus Pluto constellated. And as the Uranus-Pluto constellation, alignment was progressing, we had some really key important times. We had the Uranus, Saturn, Pluto, T-square with Jupiter also in 2012. That was really, really significant, and from that time on, like people used to say, people that know my work would say, well, you've been talking about this crisis ever since, and in a sense, it really jumped out to us in 2020 with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in square to Uranus, and then the three passes of Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions, which were really significant. That whole thing was kind of a maturation, but it wasn't new. It just became impossible to avoid, and then we had what Jung talks about in his work about a collective psychosis. We just really broke into a full collective psychosis, and then we're still in the trunks of that. And what happens really, how we heal our society, is really the work of the future. And that's, really perplexing many of us. And there's some interesting astrology that we can look at to get us to understand what the times are going to be like. But from an astrological perspective, what I found, is that before 2020, you would talk about the crisis, and then people would think, wow, you kind of, this, sometimes people would look at you like you have a hole in your head, they would think, wow, why are you so negative? They would comment about how you're so negative, and then when the crisis hit, I got a huge influx of people calling me for readings. You've been talking about this for years, and now we realize you're not nuts, and we want a reading. So in a sense, that was really good for an astrologer, and my practice has really grown since then. But also, I think the times really force us to look at our astrology much more profoundly. Because that's another realization that I had is, dude, I've been calling this for a long time. I better, this thing is real. So then I really deepen my practice, and I think that that's what's being invited in all of us, is that we deepen our practice as healers and become more committed, because now the insanity of our times is so obvious and it's so right in front of our face. We can't ignore it. Whereas pre-2020, we can kind of ignore the fact that, there's something really wrong in our society. And so now it's like really obvious. And so how are you feeling? How you've been feeling it in your practice yourself?
Well, I have to say that I feel like I want to I want to talk about some of these influences. Maybe I feel like for some people that are listening, they're not getting what what you're referring to with some of these influences. I will talk about how I'm seeing it in my practice, and maybe try to in talking about that also, like, kind of clarify some of these concepts. So like when we're talking about a T square, it's a T. So there's energy going this way, there's energy going this way, and they're going to hit. And this is a square, so they're at 90-degree angles. And then with a T square, we're going to have a 90-degree angle coming from here and another 90-degree angle coming from here. And it's creating actually like 3 points that create a T. So energies that are all colliding. And while that can create collision, which can be really upsetting and challenging, it also forces change, and it also releases a lot of energy that can move in different ways. So and these are outer planets, Uranus, Pluto, specifically Uranus, Pluto, that you were talking about. So they move slowly, and their relationships with each other have these really long lasting, generation affecting influences. And so that was what you were working with leading up to this time, largely leading up to 2020, looking back at these other periods where they were either squaring or in opposition, right, or side by side with each other.
Absolutely. And the I was referring to the Uranus Pluto square, so a 90-degree angle that started in 2008. So if you study the history of the Uranus Pluto alignment, so Uranus basically is the Promethean urge to evolve and to bring light to humanity, where Pluto the concentration of power and ancestral rage and the need to transform and to face the darkness of power and of the power source, you know, in a sense that Pluto is the great mother, but it's not, it's more like Kali, you know, it's she's the
The
angry
wrath of the great mother. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I refer to it as the rage of the great mother. So then when we have Uranus, Pluto in a square, we got the great revolutionary and the great need for evolution in challenge to that ancestral or tonic, you know. Pluto refers to Hades or hell, you know, so it's like, whoa, you know. So then when Pluto came into Capricorn, Capricorn is about structures and finance, you know, and establishments and corporations. So Pluto came in 2008 like a bowling ball and you know, but if you look back in history at seasons where Uranus and Pluto are in alignment, you get you know, for you know 2008 to 2020, but the season before that when they're in conjunction, so when they were together in the same place in the zodiac in Virgo, we had the conjunction from 1960 to 1972. So 1960 to 1972, that was a Uranus-Pluto season. Then 2008 to 2020. But then you go back also to 1928 to 1940, you know, so then, you know, these are very, very intense times in the collective, you know. Uranus and Pluto are collective planets. So astrology has two basic functions. One, it's the function of studying the natal chart and understanding what's going on with you, which, you know, which we do when we do a natal reading, and what you do when you do your herbal consultation, you look at the natal chart. So that's a very personalistic astrology. But then there's the spirit of our times. There's the astrology that helps us understand the nature of the times that we live in. And those look at these kind of seasons as really key point in human evolution. And then there are other planets that go into their cycles as well. So then the astrologer really offers insight from the astrological perspective to get some objectivity on you know, WTF is going on.
Yeah, being able to kind of move outwards and look at the whole thing, not just being kind of in it, getting jostled around. So yeah, so 1929 to 1942 or whatever. So we had like the stock market crash, and then we had World War, and the 1960s to 72, of course, we had like the big like free love hippie revolution, and a lot of coming into personal power in different ways, freeing the mind in different ways. And so then we move into this period, and of course we're seeing a lot of economic struggle when you, I mean, like economic issues like we've never before seen. And when you ask me, how am I seeing this, you know, how is this showing up in my realm, in my practice or whatever, you know, the stress of these times is definitely playing into everybody's health. It's such a major player, and the financial piece is a big part of that. The uncertainty, there's uncertainty around finances, but also just the uncertainty in general. And then there is this whole other piece about health and making decisions about your health and getting all this information about health, and really getting information about all these things, and not, I mean, this is a separate piece, but you know, all the information you can get and then not knowing what's true and what's real and what isn't, and what's disinformation and what's misinformation, and what's just these people calling out these people because they have an agenda, or these people calling out these people because they think that they're dangerous, or whatever, right? So being made to really have very little to rely on in terms of a sense of certainty or security. And so, I was starting with the health, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of how is it playing into your health. And so this stress and the sense of lack of certainty, which for many people is showing up as anxiety, like just anxiety through the roof. Anxiety is an epidemic.
Yeah.
Lots of fear around that. That's just, that's such a big piece. And I see that as that's a piece in this transformation that we're going through this. So Pluto and Saturn conjoined, and Saturn is the structure. It's the
Right.
the security, the thing we rely on that holds us up, the pillars, and it's the authorities and all these things. And then Pluto is like all this truth that's been not acknowledged, that relates to all of us, that at certain times, like an earthquake or a volcano or a tidal wave, it comes up to the surface and it can overwhelm. And it has come up and it's come in contact, the two of them together, Pluto and Saturn, this truth and this kind of overwhelming of the structure as we've known it, as we've relied on it, our authorities, our, all these systems are kind of coming apart at the seams, and you don't know what's going to happen next. It is a transformation in a very real sense of a death of a whole bunch of things.
Absolutely. Pluto played such an important role, but you pointed out to the Pluto conjunction with Saturn, which was kind of the kicking start,
Mm-hmm.
But then the three conjunctions of Jupiter, Pluto, and then at the end of the 2020, we had the Maxima Conjunctio of Jupiter and Saturn in conjunction with Pluto. And I think that that's what marked this time as being really unique, because the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction comes every 20 years, and it's really important. Jupiter and Saturn are much more personal planets. Jupiter is my hope and my faith and what I want to be when I grow up. It's my enthusiasm towards life. And Saturn is the discipline and the mastery and the solitary commitment to my calling that makes, me become, or fulfill my Jupiterian ambition. And so, whenever we have the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that come together every 20 years, this is a conjunction that's been with us for thousands of years, because these are visible planets, and they were identified as times of great shift where kingdoms, so it was symbolically, it was viewed as the death of the old king and the birth of the new king. And so Jupiter, Saturn, and then if we look at that with the lens of the Saturn, the Pluto Uranus square, what happened is that Maxima Conjunctio of Jupiter Saturn landed almost exactly with Pluto, and as it moved into 2021 into Aquarius, then both planets entered into a square with Uranus. And then now we've been experiencing over the last 2 years a series of exact squares of Saturn and Uranus. And if you are interested in that information, I have a video, and I'll put the link to it at the end. Is the Saturn Pluto I'm sorry, the Saturn Uranus cycle in our times, where I go through 2 full cycles of Saturn and Uranus, starting with the conjunction of Saturn and Uranus in 1942. So just like the Saturn Uranus square that we're living through came after the Uranus Pluto, a square of the 1930s, Then similarly, the Uranus-Pluto square was followed by this Saturn-Uranus. And, also the Saturn-Uranus conjunction of 1988 was in conjunction with the Neptune, and that was a really big time of evolution. But that, these are very complex, especially for somebody who's new to astrology. But these are planetary influences that are felt in transits in our own personal lives. And then you pointed to the collective psychosis that emerges in our time, and this effect is kind of creating a great spiritual need for finding the safety within. So in your clients, what have you been seeing in terms of what have you been able to do to help them deal with all of this stress and uncertainty as you're speaking?
Well, of course, it's pretty nuanced, and it depends a lot on the individual. And stress is generally going to be a stress on the system. So it's going to affect health in different ways. And generally it's the weakest link in the body that's affected, right? So, things just flare up more under stress, whatever they happen to be, and immunity goes down. And so, all this fear of getting sick can more likely get you sick because your immunity goes down when you're afraid and stressed like that. So what I do, it varies, but basically in terms of looking at the chart, a big piece that I like to work with is bringing in a sense of what's going on in terms of, okay, you're feeling ungrounded, you're feeling challenged because all these things are breaking up and they're affecting all of us, but also, how is this showing up individually for you in your chart? And what does it mean for you? Because it's not always going to be like this. This is a phase. This is a period that we're going through, and looking at it as a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Another piece with that transformation, and I come back to this a lot, is the Pluto piece. And this is true for everybody, although I do find a lot of times, particularly for women, it's the wrath of the Great Mother. It is a feminine kind of holding that Pluto has. She's like the earth, just taking the abuse, just taking the toxicity, and it all just seeps in there, and life goes on the surface, and then eventually, oof, it comes up. That's it. I'm not taking any more, and up it comes. And there is so much power there. And that's another piece, is that Pluto is about your personal power, and how you don't necessarily have to be expressing it in this crazy cataclysmic rage, but it is potent with the truth that you know and you can see and you have always known, and maybe you haven't looked at it, or maybe you haven't wanted to look at it, or maybe there hasn't been a place. A lot of times, it's not appropriate in this circumstance to look at this or bring it up or whatever, but it's been there, and now it's like it's brimming at the surface. And if you don't deal with it, if you don't acknowledge it and own it, then it will keep throwing you about. Whereas, so it's a really big call. It's a really big, deep call, but it's there. You can acknowledge whatever is there is your truth in whatever you're experiencing, and make it part of you, like embody it more, bring it out more into your day-to-day, and recognize that this is your power, that part of what you're experiencing is actually, it's you coming into and claiming this power. And another piece with that is, what is the truth of what you are doing here now? because Pluto
Mhm.
is about death and rebirth and power. It's like about like the raw, what is this about? Whatever is, surface just fiddles away, and let's get to like the real deal. So why did you come here? Why are you in a body? Why are you, what made you get to this point? And while you're here, because you're not going to be here forever, in fact, you could be gone tomorrow, right? So what are you going to do with everything that you have? What is it that you need to do that you haven't done yet? What do you need to be stepping into? And it could be the scariest thing. And that's the Saturn piece, really, is like, no, but there's a fear piece with Saturn. It's like you want to hold on to what's secure, the structure, what's safe, and you're afraid of anything beyond that. But it's like, no, Pluto's breaking that up. And Uranus too, like a lightning bolt coming from left field there. Whatever you were relying on, it's gone now, or it's really being challenged and it doesn't feel secure anymore. So you have to step into that fear. Where there is fear, there is power. A wonderful quote by Starhawk that I like to go back to. Find that power. That's your power. That's how you move through it. And so then, encouraging that and working with the plant medicines and sometimes with flower essences, which work more on the mind, emotions, energy kind of body, to help
And,
support that.
and you include some homeopathic medicines as well?
Sometimes I do homeopathic. I really like to work with the vibrational remedies. So I do bring in homeopathic medicines, although I'm not an official homeopath, but I incorporate them. And I bring in lots of flower essences, and I do lots of herbal, just tinctures and teas, but bringing in the essence of the herb, the energy of the herb, sometimes giving a tiny amount, a really, really low dose, where it's more of a vibrational effect on the person that just kind of gives them a little ripple that will ripple energetically through them, and they can respond. And at the same time, with this suggestion of, hey, this is what's going on. How about if you look at it this way and you incorporate it this way? And then maybe every day you take a drop or two of this tincture, and it kind of brings you back into this place of, right, okay, I'm claiming my power, I'm stepping into this, I am afraid, but that's okay, I'm moving beyond it, and I can, it just gives you that, like, it's like a buddy that's there with you, helping you to, guide you, but you're the one that's driving. You're the one.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about, what we're meeting in our clients, because I think that whatever practice we have, we kind of facing the same tension, in our clients, and the astrology, is more of a kind of, well, gives you the kind of the archetypal structure of the client, and it also shows you through the transit what the individual is going through. And that seems to be the great message of our time, and I think that if we can look at I use the word, and Jung used the word collective psychosis or psychic infection or so this what is psyche? Psyche is soul, and really as collective psychosis is the soul of our collective rising up against us and saying, okay, I think that there are some changes that need to be done, like you were saying about Pluto, so there are changes that need to come in, but these changes are internal changes. We can look at them as political or social or financial changes that need to be made on the outside, but it's really an internal change that frees you from the collective, or the psychic infection. And whatever side of the issue you face yourself to be in, there's a tendency to really get caught up in the collective psychosis if you're not really, doing the work of traveling the middle path, and so then in my practice, then the tools that I give people are, keeping track of your dreams, and then doing your journaling, and doing, and giving this ancestral rage and this that's consuming you, giving it expression in creative and spiritual practice, so that you can really kind of rewire yourself and rewire your practice so that you can adapt to the changing time and become the change that you want to see in the world, so it's interesting to see that we're approaching, or we're seeing the same kind of challenges in our clients and approaching it differently, but at the same time kind of doing the same thing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's so important that it does come down to the personal work, your own personal journey. It's helpful. Um, it takes some of the weight off to recognize this is happening to all of us. Everybody's going through it in their own way. It's not because you did something wrong or you have a problem only. Like, everybody is going through this in their different way, but you're not getting answers from anywhere outside of yourself to navigate this. There is no structure in place that's going to guide you. You're going to be disappointed or hurt or crumbled or whatever. If you try to rely on that, you have to go within and then find what it is that you have to bring to this that's going on right now, because we're relying on all of us. We need us. We need you, right? We need, so we need you to connect with you and do the work that you need to do and get rid of the things that are in the way of that. Be able to file them in the right places, be able to let go of what needs to be let go of. And so there's so many insights you can get to that through your own work, like through journaling, or maybe through an art practice where things come through, and also through the dream work for sure. And I know about what was it, like maybe a year and a half ago or something, I did a bit of my own dream work with you, and it was so powerful at a really challenging time for me. But I had these intense dreams leading up to that, and I thought, okay, I want to talk to you about this, because let's see what it's about. And there were some archetypal figures stepping in, and you helped me to see that, and I was able to apply it to what was going on in my life. And it just having that perspective so much more meaning, realizing I am communicating this to myself through all these symbols in my dreams. And then actually, I see our life as a waking dream. And so these symbols actually show up in your life in different ways too, throughout your day. It's just that it's maybe a little bit more kind of concentrated and honed in your sleeping dreams. But
Right.
that all of this is there. It's showing me, and it's helping me actually to go through this. This is part of my own process of moving through these times and coming into my own power, bringing the truth forward in whatever way I can, tuning into what it is that I need to do to help, and addressing the fears and the resistance that are all coming up in response to that. But seeing that this is also, we're all experiencing this kind of thing in different ways. So, yeah, all of that, it was really, really helpful. And that is definitely something that I'm encouraging a lot of the time for people that come to work with me, that they have they find their own practice. If you're somebody that makes art, you draw, like, make sure you're doing that regularly and allow whatever's coming through, like, recognize that you are, you're moving stuff through in that practice. If you're a mover and a dancer, let stuff move through you that way. Or you're making music, or you write, or whatever, but have ways to clear that stuff.
Ultimately, that's what we're going through as a creative revolution. We need to be,
Yeah.
Creatively committed, and realizing that our creative practice is part of our spiritual practice. This is how we express the soul. But as you were talking, I couldn't help but reflect on how fascinating it is. And I just wanted to kind of give the listeners a little bit of an understanding of what we've been going through, and also kind of kind of situating ourselves here in the spring. What was interesting in 2020 and 2021 is that every single planet except the outer planet of Uranus and Neptune, every single planet made a conjunction to Pluto.
So can we
So
see this?
Jupiter's, huh? What's
Like,
that?
so Pluto, can you show us which one's Pluto?
Yeah, Pluto's right over here in,
Okay, in the
so
end of Capricorn.
so
Yeah.
in 2021, in 2020 and 2021, during a period of a year there, every single planet made a conjunction. So that means they were connected directly with Pluto. Now,
So we had,
go ahead.
sorry, so we had in early 2020, that started with Saturn, right?
Saturn, so
So where was
Saturn is here
Saturn? So
now. So
Saturn was
Saturn
beside
came,
Pluto. Yeah, and then it kept going, right? And then
and then Jupiter came
made
and
its
did
way.
3 times,
Okay,
but also the Sun and Mercury and Venus and Mars
right.
and Venus, all of the planets have come at one point or another. Now, at the end of 2021, and this is what what we felt, a lot of us felt this winter, is that we had this, right now, Venus and Mars have passed into Aquarius. But at the time of the last new moon,
Just last
Venus and
week, just
Mars,
last Wednesday, right? Yeah, that was
Venus and Mars were in exact conjunction with Pluto. And in the course of winter, Venus, because of retrogression, Venus came past Pluto, turned retrograde past Pluto one more time. And then the last new moon was the third conjunction of Pluto and Venus. But also Mercury did the exact same thing. Mercury passed Pluto, made one conjunction, came into Aquarius, came back, did a second and a third. So that archetype of Pluto and this visiting of hell with the emotional Venusian aspects, with the mercurial intellectual aspect, and with Mars, the will, all have made very, very important alignments to Pluto in the course of the winter. And all of that while Saturn is in square to Uranus, and now the Venus-Mars conjunction, the next new moon will have a Venus-Mars-Saturn square Uranus. So in that way, we can kind of keep an eye on what's going on in the collective psyche so that we can make adjustments to our own health and just also a sense of clarity at what is to come. And one of the things that spring's going to bring us is this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. And then Tamara and I, we have been talking about this because both of us have a lot of planets. We were talking about that now, how we have both Venus, Mercury, and the Sun in Pisces, and they're completely exchanged, but they're in the same place. And
right.
so
we have conjunctions between our Venus and our Sun, Mercury, and yeah, and Venus, and yeah. So, anyway.
So there's a real ability to communicate, and then that Venus and Pisces. But so Tamara's Sun is right here, and my Venus is right here, and so we have the Jupiter, Neptune, both co-rulers of Pisces, and that's what's going on with the full moon that we're just living through, right? That's coming on the 18th, so right before the equinox. And then I have a video up for that. So we have the moon, the sun, the earth, Jupiter, Neptune, and Mercury, 4 planets in Pisces with the moon in opposition, so then that's a big shift from all the Pluto stuff. We're coming into Jupiterian, Neptunian, and there's great potential in that in terms of healing, but also in terms of creative and mystical practices, lots of really cool messages coming from the dreams. And that Jupiter Neptune conjunction is going to be kicking in as spring comes in. Beginning of spring, Jupiter Neptune will be exact. Right now, they're within a few degrees of each other, and Jupiter's moving towards Neptune. And then Jupiter comes into Aries, and then all Mercury, Venus, and Mars are all coming to make conjunctions with those two planets. So we're going to see a definite shift, can potentially be very, very optimistic and very kind of healing, but also kind of unsettling emotionally. It's not easy. Pisces energy is not easy for most people. There's a sense, I call it, there's a certain creative potential in despair. Despair is a typical Neptunian and Piscean kind of emotions. It's a despair is actually a type of surrender. I have to surrender to what is and accept what is, and realize that there's something deeply creative in that dark emotion, but it's not always easy to do that. But yet it can lead to incredible works of art, great inspiration. It's that transformation of the darkness into light that we're into in alchemy.
Yeah, transformation of darkness into light, and maybe a melding of them. And I think that the Mars and Venus conjoining and having just crossed over Pluto, which you were talking about just at our most recent new moon last week. We had those two planets conjunct Pluto at the end of Capricorn, and then now, as you said, they're moving through Aquarius. They're going to conjoin with Saturn soon. But that is, you've got the masculine and the feminine. In a way, you could say that is the light and the dark, these forces, the heavenly, the fiery. I've been talking about this a lot in my, I'm in the middle of just finishing up a series of classes called Herbs, Health, the Elements, and the Moon. And we go through a moon cycle, and through that, we're looking at what's going on astrologically, and then also talking about the 4 elements within the chart, and how all of that relates to the physical health and herbs and how they can play in. Anyways, so we've been looking at the chart of the moment and watching Mars and Venus traveling right side by side. And then they just, at the last new moon, we had our last class, and they crossed over Pluto, and then now they've moved. They're at 0 or 1 degree of Aquarius, or 2 degrees or something. They're pretty early in Aquarius still, so they're not quite at Saturn yet, like they are lined up there on your thing, but they will be. They're making their way there because they move fairly quickly. So that there is this, it's the light and the dark, it's the masculine and the feminine. The masculine elements are the elements of fire, all uprising, and the element of air. Both of them are like up here, and they don't take really physical form, and they're really changeable. And then we have the feminine elements of water, downward flowing and heavier and slower moving compared to fire and air. And then earth, the densest, the slowest, the heaviest, really feminine. And of course, water and earth have they work together to create physical form, right? To create life. You have wet soil, and seeds will sprout, and plants will grow. And so this is like, the earth, the womb of life, like creating new life, the feminine. And then the spirit and the energy and the action and movement come from fire and air. And so these coming together, crossing over Pluto, the transformation, the death and rebirth, within, collectively, and within each of us individually, we're going through this, death of some of our feminine aspect, and death of some of our masculine aspect, and rebirth into new masculine aspect, new feminine aspect. And we're seeing it showing up in these different ways. And it's quite fascinating. So as we move through this and work to integrate these energies, these whatever we're letting go of and whatever we're moving into, it makes me think of, moving more into the space of Pisces there that you're talking about, where we have right now the planets of Jupiter and Neptune, and both of them are the ruling planets of Pisces. So both of them are expressing themselves so strongly there. And, the energy of Neptune in Pisces and Neptune is like dissolves everything, turns everything that's separate from each other all into one mass of everything's collective. We are all just these molecules interacting in space, and we're all just energy, right? And so no boundaries, like, and so this joining of the masculine and feminine, it's a little bit like that Neptunian thing.
Right.
And then as part of that, it means some stuff's going away and it doesn't have the same defined form that it used to be. And some stuff's coming in. I mean, it also makes me think, what's that?
As you're speaking, you can really see your Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Pisces, the way you express yourself. And it's really, really cool. If people want to follow your classes, how do they find out about your classes?
Oh, my website, hawthorneherbals.com.
Hawthorneherbal.com. And as you were describing your class, I wanted to join it.
You would be most welcome. Maybe when I run it again next year, you can come on as a guest.
Anyway. Well, we can definitely continue this cross-pollination. It's been really, really fun, and we talked about keeping it under an hour, so we're just about an hour, a little bit more than an hour.
Okay.
And so I think one of the really important things about these things is if you like what you saw, subscribe to our channels, Hawthorne Herbal and the Healer and the Dreamer Astrology. Share this work, and if you have any questions about what we talked about today, write in the comment section and give us a question, and we'll get back to you on that, and also some things that you may want us to talk about, because this is a kind of a new thing for us, and we see a lot of potential in it, and then we'll keep doing them. And we're not exactly sure how this is going to go on, but again, we're going to let our intuition and our emotional intelligence guide us through the process. As
Piscean beings that we are.
Exactly. Flow right into it. But again, if you have questions, mark them down. That's going to help us really focus on giving you better material. I don't know about you, Tamara, but I really loved this. That was really fun.
It was totally fun. I know I'm like, oh, wow, it's been an hour. Okay. We were just getting all wrapped up. But yeah, it was great. And I think, it was a good idea you had to do this, because of course we just have visits every now and then. We'll have a meetup online and have a chat, because we haven't been able to see each other in person for a while, and we like to connect and share, and then we get into these big conversations. And so it was a cool idea you had to actually just maybe record one and see what put it out there, because this stuff we chat about is maybe pretty interesting to lots of other people too. Maybe not, I don't know, but I mean,
it's definitely, I think that people, this conversation flowed so well. And I think that this is one of the really big part of the times that we're going through, is the building a community, and this idea of cross-pollination, because by yourself growing your own, work, but it's difficult and it takes time. But, if my people support your channel and your channel supports my people, all of a sudden, boom, and then if somebody else wants to share with us, and doing more cross-pollination. And so I'm doing as much cross-pollination as I can, with the hope of delivering really good material and introducing resources to my clients, because my practice is limited, so I do this. But then if somebody really wants some herbal remedies and some energy medicines, they can come to you. You can have a consultation. We can, and then our clients will benefit from that greatly. And so that's exciting. And that's kind of what I'm seeing being really important in these times, is to have a sense of community and the resources that I need to thrive, instead of to feel isolated, because that's the worst possible thing you can do for yourself in these times, is not to feel supported by a tribe and people who are there for you. And as healers, that's what we do. We're here for you.
Yeah, and actually we're all healers. So it's part of recognizing that you are the healer too. Just, maybe helping people to recognize that, hey, you actually have everything that you need to help yourself. But the connection and the sharing is such a big piece. I agree. And I have suggested to some of my clients that they connect with you as well. And I, of course, would continue to do that. For anybody who wants to go really more deeply into the astrology, because I only cover it sort of to a certain extent, and we can sometimes do an extra session where we just focus on the astrology for people that are really interested. But I know that in working with you, and you go into the dream work, and you go into, there can be a lot of ancestral work, and there you can really go to places that go, I think, generally quite a bit deeper than where I'm going to go in my, I'm keeping it more to working with the whole thing, including the herbs and the, and the day-to-day lifestyle and things, you can do that way. So yeah, for sure. And I would say that if anybody, if you have, I like the idea of getting people to put in, any questions, ideas about things that you would want us to talk about, because I mean, sometimes I talk more about herbs and foods and things and how they relate to planets or to signs or to elements, and like we can bring in some of that stuff, or we could talk more about dream work, or we can get more into the archetypes of and the planets we can like focus on each time. We were talking about like, oh yeah, we could just talk about Venus for a whole time, and get really into that, and then talk about Jupiter, and then like, so all these different ideas. But maybe if other people have ideas about what you'd like to hear, that will help us to determine where we would go from here.
We could also study some charts, that maybe some, people that everybody knows, where we could showcase the different techniques that we use, because your techniques are much more, based on, medical astrology and horary astrology. You look at the chart quite different, whereas I look at the chart in a much more Jungian alchemical perspective, so that the cross-pollination would be really, really interesting. But yeah, I think getting the feedback from the people is going to be really important. And yeah, I was thinking when you were talking that, one of the things that I've been really wanting to do, is to be working in an atmosphere of a clinic, where, there's other healers within the same clinic that offer different things. And then, then I can do the astrology and the dream work. And then here they can go see you for, the herbalist, and then they can, see a body worker, kind of the creating. I kind of been craving that. So in a sense, we're kind of creating a virtual clinic, we're on, I'm on Vancouver Island, in Victoria, and here we are, and people are transported wherever they are, and and we're hanging out and we're sharing, and they have the opportunity to go see you, to go see me. So we kind of, it's kind of, giving us the opportunity to do that in a very virtual way.
Right. Yes. Well, this virtual reality that we've moved into has opened up a lot of things for me in my practice. And I think, for you too, that has been one of the gifts of this transformation and this pandemic and such. I didn't really realize how much I could get into working online until I was forced to. And then it's, now I can work with people all over the place, and it actually is great. And with the astrology sessions, you can just pull up the chart live on the screen and share it, and you can, it's really easy. Otherwise, I was printing it out or having to hold up a computer, and together we look at the computer. And of course, you can't compare to being in person one-on-one. That is a really special thing, and I still do that when I can, but it does work out really nicely, this online thing too. So which is
I was kind of a purist at the beginning. I never did I never did readings online before. Right. I would insist on being there personally,
right?
And I didn't like doing any online work. And it forced me completely, so for a while there, I didn't do any in-person reading. And then now I'm going back out into the world and doing more personal readings, and that feels really good. But to be able to have, and really to know, I've had people from California, I've had people from England, I've had people from Ireland come and get readings with me,
Yeah.
and then that's what the YouTube does for us. It just throws our work up in the air, and somebody in India can find it and really like what we're doing and connect with us. So the global community is becoming a real factor. And so really fun to get to share this with you, my friend.
Yes, yes, yes. So, well, looking forward to more. We'll see where we go.
Cool. I'm MC Starman, Martin Comtois, and we have Tamara Segal with us of Hawthorne Herbal. Join the conversation, subscribe. We'll see you next time.
All right. Good luck to all.